Welcome back everybody to another MOTOBOB video at EICMA in Milan. We're here on the Honda stand to check out some more of their new bikes. They've got loads this year, but one you guys have been asking me to cover is this, the NX500. This is actually a rebrand of what was previously known as the CB500X. I believe the NX prefix is, part of Honda's history, so they might have wanted to bring that back in. But yeah, it's not just a branding exercise. There are some genuine changes across this bike, and so here we go with all the key details that you need to know. Now, number one of the key changes for this year is a new visual design. So you've got new bodywork with a slightly revised look. I wouldn't say it's night and day, and of course the chassis is pretty much the same, so that does affect a large part of the look. But for the bodywork they have changed. It's a little modernization, and also they say that they've done some wind tunnel work and it's got more stability at high speed. Now they've also given it a little graphical treatment. You've got the NX logo down on the side there to liven things up a bit. And you got three color choices for this year. So there's a black. This is called Grand Prix Red, which might be my pick of the bunch because it's the most punchy. And you've also got Pearl Horizon White if you want something that looks a little more clean. Also, number two, we've got new lighting with LEDs all round. You can see that this is a big part of the new aesthetic. I wouldn't say that the CB500X headlight was particularly daring or impactful, so perhaps a lot of people will prefer this. It's got a semi sort of stacked design. It's not, proper projectors, but it has a little bit of that look. A little running light down the bottom here as well. And they also say they've given it a wider beam. I actually noticed that quite often today. I've been crouching down at the front of the bikes here to show you the front, and actually I have to go quite far back to get out of the beam of this one. So they say better visibility at night. You also get these little always-on indicators as position lights, which is a thing that you'll see on all Hondas. Other bikes starting to adopt it as well lately, and that makes you more visible on the road, which should lead to better safety. And I believe this bike also gets their emergency stop signal feature, so when you're hard on the brakes, decelerating, the rear indicators will flash so you don't get shunted from behind, or at least you lessen the chances of a nasty accident. So good work from Honda on the safety front. Across all the bikes you'll see on the stand, you see a lot of these features. Now the CB500X, I was lucky enough to review it last year, I believe, and I was very impressed at what it does as sort of a smaller option for an adventure bike. It really is a lot of fun on the road, quite capable, good comfort levels, but one thing I didn't love was maybe the LCD display. It just didn't feel quite as premium as even some more affordable options on the market. So it's great to see for 2024 that we've now got a color TFT display in the cockpit here. And they actually say we've got a few different layouts, so visual representations of the revs and speed. They're called bar, circle and simple, so you can dial it into your taste. And they say the screen is optically bonded, which is something I heard of first, I think on the Tiger 900 from Triumph, which is that the way that they manufacture the physical part of the dash means that it naturally reduces a bit of glare and makes it easier to read in bright conditions. On top of that, you got some connectivity features now if you pair it with the Honda app, so I guess that opens up things like calls and music through the switchgear and dash, and also some navigation features. That's called Road Sync, and that's available for both iOS and Android. And thing is, you've got a lot more features now. So one of the things they've done is introduce this little joystick on the switchgear to make it easier to navigate through all this new stuff. And the good news is this is backlit, which is a massive bonus if you do ride at night. It makes it much easier to glance down and get your thumb on the right button. Onto the suspension, and we've still got the Showa separate function big piston upside down fork here, which is a nice premium feature on a bike at this sort of level. Monoshock at the rear as well, and both I believe have revised settings for this year in terms of damping, and Honda say that these tweaks have led to both better on-road and off-road performance. Now I'm not sure it's a bike you'd take extensively off-road, but of course you do have this oversized front wheel which gives it a little bit of on and off-road performance. Now speaking of the wheels, there's a good optimization here because they're now down to 5 spokes I believe from 7, and that's saved quite a lot of weight. So 800 grams off the front wheel alone, 700 off the rear. And of course, when you're reducing rotating mass, that makes changes of direction easier and also acceleration and deceleration. But also unsprung mass means the suspension can more easily do its job. And so that's quite a big deal, to be honest. I think that's going to change the handling for the better. And also there must have been some weight shaved off elsewhere, because now total curb weight is down to 196 kilograms, which I think is 3 kilograms less than the previous generation. So great to see it getting a little bit leaner as well. Now, before we get on to the next feature, I just want to say a huge thanks to our sponsors for this week. Metzeler tyres and Insta360. Specifically, we use their X3 360 camera, and it's absolutely fantastic for coming to shows. I've seen loads of people packing the X3 actually and getting those big wide shots to show the vastness of EICMA, which is vast, let me tell you that. But also when we're back home, we use these on the bike, and they're absolutely brilliant for mounting anywhere you want on the bike. They've got loads of mounts and accessories, so you can stick it in all sorts of places. And then when you're back home, you finish your ride, or when you're out, you can get it on the app, desktop software. You can reframe it, move it around. You can choose landscape or portrait. So it really is very creative and easy and fun. Anyone can do it. I love taking mine out for a ride and trying something new versus, you know, the same old chin shot on a regular standard action camera. So yes, do check out the link down in the description below to get yours. And you'll also see a code down there where everyone gets a free gift with every X3 purchase. So once again, a massive thanks to Insta360 for making this trip possible. It's been amazing, and they've been a huge part of that. And with that, back to the bike. As for brakes, well, this bike used to come with just a single disc up front, but you got these two-pot Nissans, and I think it was last year or the year before they updated it with twin discs. You got wavy discs, so they look kind of fancy, 296 millimeters each, and then you got a single pot caliper at the rear on a 240mm disc. Ergonomically, I think this bike has remained unchanged for 2024, so it's still an 830mm seat height. Like I say, if you don't fancy a big, tall, heavy adventure bike, but you like the idea of the versatility, then this is definitely one to look at, because 830mm means you can get your feet down quite easily. Bar position feels pretty much the same as well, nice and wide. You can stand up on this bike to an extent, but it has pretty much road-focused foot pegs, so you'd need to swap those out for something aftermarket if you really did want a bit of extra grip. The windscreen's decent as well. It's not particularly wide, the cockpit, but it does come up reasonably high and protects, you know, the majority of your torso from the wind chill. Perhaps one small negative is that I do believe for this year the fuel tank capacity is slightly reduced, so it's down by 0.2 litres, not a huge deal, but that now means it comes in at 17.5. I guess the saving grace though is this engine is super fuel efficient. It takes just 3.7 litres per 100 kilometers. If you've been watching any of our other videos, we've talked about that sort of consumption figure a few times. Of all the bikes we've talked about so far, that is probably the most efficient one. That's thanks to this excellent little parallel twin, 471 cc's, and it really does like to rev. I think that's one of the things I enjoyed most about it, is you can sort of get it singing, and it's not the fastest engine that you're ever going to ride, but still pretty entertaining, and you're sort of making the most of everything it's got. So 47 horsepower at 8,600 RPM, 43 Newton meters of peak torque at 6,500. And so if I remember correctly, that is the same as the previous gen, or it's not a particularly big change, but what they do say is they've changed the fuel injection settings to give it more low-end grunt and power through the mid-range. That's something that I've heard of on a couple of the other Honda bikes this year, but of course that's always going to be handy if you're doing low-speed work and also under acceleration. Now, new for 2024 is HSTC, Honda Selectable Torque Control, which is their name for traction control. I don't know if you deem it absolutely necessary for a bike of this sort of power level, but I guess if you are using it as a commuter, which probably a lot of people do, then if you're in wet conditions, it can actually occasionally get you out of a bit of a sticky situation. So a nice enhancement, and I think it is switchable, so you can always do away with it if you don't want it on. Price on this one has been announced as £6,799, which, you know, is 100 quid more than the previous gen CB500X, but given how much other bikes from other manufacturers have been increasing this year, I don't think that's too bad at all. As for what else you could get for that money, well, the KTM 390 Adventure comes in at about £1,000 less, so that's one to consider. But also we've got the new Royal Enfield Himalayan 450. That looks very good indeed, similar in stature and capability, although that bike doesn't have a price yet, so I'll have to wait and see on that one. As always, let me know what you think of it though, down in the comments below, and also I'd love to know which of those three I just mentioned you'd buy, or is there another better option that I just haven't thought of? Do let me know. We love reading all your comments. Also, we've got our EICMA playlist on the screen here, so give it a click, check out all the bikes from this week. There's absolutely loads of brilliant new 2024 bikes, and we'll add them all there. If you've not subscribed, hit subscribe and you'll get all of our videos as soon as they go live. Many thanks for watching this one, and we'll see you in the next one.